All right, there we go. Good morning, folks. I'm sorry about the false start earlier. One day I'll end up starting a stream in like some non-scuff format. It will not be today. I will continue to muck this up every single time for at least the next week. Um, so so hey, I hope you guys are doing good today. For a little bit of a heads up and warning as we kind of get started. It is storming out today, and sometimes that means that either my internet or my power likes to go out. Ideally, we're gonna avoid that. Oh, hey, good morning, Ego. Good morning, Matt. Good morning, Jess. And good morning, and I'm sorry, Bimble. So, so what are we gonna do today? Today is gonna be pretty chill. We've had a nice little productive week. You know, we made Leo as a character. She's having some issues right now, but that's mostly due to OAI. We got some good expansion done on the TCG framework, even though while I was streaming that, it was mostly just us talking. I did manage to update like another half dozen files there, so we got some good solid work done there, right? So there's a lot of things that we're steadily getting done this week, and Turtle and I, Tortuga, we're planning to go ahead and push that character card import update to the site this Saturday. That was the plan, but we can't get it working the way we want, so we're gonna pivot a little bit today and do some pseudocode. Shake my head, I'm joining in 10 minutes again. I'm currently walking down the street. Yeah, focus on the street, don't get... You're just gonna walk down the street and either bump into something or bump into someone you don't want to. Nobody needs any of that. Have fun on your walk, Ego. So, yeah, today I just wanted to be able to pivot a little bit and do some research and experiments that I haven't had a good time frame to run, but I think today is going to be a really good day for that. We've had prior streams where we've talked about pseudocode before and what it looks like currently. Pseudocode looks a little bit, here, let me just scroll down to the bottom here. Here we go. You know what pseudocode looks like because we use it for all of our characters. But this is the basic breakdown where it's, you know, YAML, square bracket formula, quotation marks, and underscores. So I'm gonna really quick, we're gonna draw up the old pseudocode, and then we're gonna make some prompts for new pseudocode today. Is YAML plus SBF, which is square brackets, quotation marks, and underscore for specialized strings. That's it. Nothing too fancy with the old pseudocode, right? Probably important to note that this is a descriptive language, and it doesn't do the best when guiding the AI for tasks. It's really easy to manipulate the weights of, and it is pretty simple and straightforward to learn. So that's the old pseudocode. That's the old, and this is LML and guidance, right? We're also just going to call this V1 for now. So today we're going to look at new pseudocode, and that's going to be, we're just going to call this V2 for the moment. And this one works like an actual code block, right? So it follows code structure, and it wants to look at functions and constant variables, and it wants to process the task like a machine. The benefits is that This reads more like oh man, I can't say that. This reads more like an executable language. There we go. It also has the benefit of being a bit more strict, but it isn't as easy to manipulate weights on. And because this reads more like an executable language, we have seen things like OpenSea, some of Bimble's characters that he has done there, how their returns have certain highlights on things like the text where they're able to send through certain code blocks, and the AI does like a good job of adhering to those. This is one of those things that would uh, make that work just as well in later generations of AI that we're currently getting into, right? Yeah, I've been toying around with the old pseudocode and Novel AI's lore books, but Nye doesn't seem to like it. You are 100% correct, and that is for one simple reason. So Novel AI, if I'm understanding their inputs correctly, Novel AI works a little bit like this. It is its own LLM, and then every LLM has like a base set of rules, right? Like GPT has its base LLM, and then it's overlaid with these different rules, right, about ethics and other guidance that are really important to it. And this is essentially what you're trying to crack when you're doing jailbreaks, is this little stacking reminder that they've already loaded into the model. Now Novel AI doesn't have those restrictions. Instead, it contains its own pseudocode guidance. Novel AI understood when making their models and testing it, they understood at least the idea behind pseudocode and what would eventually come to be guidance in other languages, in other models. And they just did a really good job of implementing their own pseudocode that the model is able to adhere very strictly to. But as you can see, yeah, it definitely has its limited uses as a result, and it isn't nearly as player friendly, right? Because the people who, and I'm just being honest about my design take on Novel AI, right? It was designed by people who code, not people who code and use the product or are concerned heavily about ease of use. A lot of people will design with functionality in mind and for the ability for their products to be intuitive. When you are making a piece of clothing, if somebody ends up wanting to put the shoulder strap of a dress on their actual shoulder, even though it's made for taking pressure off the garments when you're hanging them in a closet, right? Part of that is the designer's fault for not making it in an intuitive enough way for individuals to understand it. The same thing goes with code and these LLMs and this pseudocode. And yes, I know you literally have been outside for hours because you cried earlier, and now you're gonna cry again. It's raining outside. You can see this. You were wet when you came in. Don't you start with me, Mr. Houdini. My goodness. He's just all mouth lately. I actually am super excited because I think it's gonna be the first week of this month, I'm gonna have his own space for him. So all three of the kitties are gonna have their own space and their own stands, and they're gonna have way more room each. So he can stop complaining because he won't have to share with his brother or his sister, and there will be no more of this. Except I'm sure there will be into the day where I finally end up taking care of the basement ceiling. Yeah, I can't swallow how hard it is to use Nye as a chatbot despite having the uncensored advantage. Right, and that's the biggest problem with it is that they have a model that very much that a lot of people want to use, a lot of people want to engage with. That they have the ability to draw in a massive player base, but it is so specifically set to people who want to spend time learning how to manipulate that model. It's very frustrating because the reality is what Novel AI is doing right now. It's that LLM in terms of built-in pseudocode guidance and stuff like that for users. That is, I can almost guarantee that's going to fall to the wayside. Something like that is probably very useful in like game design or a fine-tuned model for a specific use if you're trying to do something like that, but I don't feel like the way that they're leveraging pseudocode right now is good for public consumption. It is definitely good for their niche, and they're able to do quite a bit with it. They've been very successful, but it's not one of those things that has an easy level of introduction, and that's the beauty not just to pseudocode v1, but what we're getting into now with pseudocode v2, right? So the benefit of pseudocode v2 is that, I mean, there's tons of benefits. Another big one that I've come across is that this is going to be something that teaches individuals new to coding about code structure. It's very friendly and forgiving, incredibly forgiving compared to actual code. And my suspicions are that it is actually easier to keep the model on track using v2. And in addition to that, it is going to have even less confusion, i.e. no micro lobotomies. So a micro lobotomy happens when something in an AI's character card or description kind of crosses some wires, and even though everything will look correct, for some reason it's not. Things like this happen when you have a character who is listed at, this is like my go-to example, who is 150 pounds, and you list that at one point in their character card in quotations, right? Just 150 pounds. And then later on, you go ahead and reference at 150 pounds specifically again. Occasionally what ends up happening is even though you're using pseudocode v2, it'll still read that as 300 pounds, right? So there comes a point where while v1 pseudocode is really useful, sometimes it ends up falling over itself. And I don't think that the newer version of pseudocode that we're going to be exploring has the same issues. And I am ignoring Mr. Socks right now. I know he's so adorable back there with his tiny little scream, but he is Harry Houdini and somehow managed to get out of the cage the other day. The giant crate, it has 3 latches on it, and the top one is like 3 or 4 feet in the air. So he has tons of space, but somehow managed to get through all of them. Little bastard. Okay. So now that we've kind of got a good grasp of pseudocode v1, pseudocode v2, and some of the benefits and suspicions that are coming out from playing with this new version of pseudocode, it's probably time for us to design an experiment where we can quantify the differences between the two things, right? So v1 versus v2 work differently, but there are ways that we can go ahead and test things like creativity and randomness. So being able to get a check on both of these things between pseudocode and our v1 and v2 is probably a good idea, and there are a couple ways that we can do this, because this is not my first rodeo. I know, baby. Oh my god, you break my heart sometimes. I don't want to put you back out while it's raining, though, so if you can just chill until it clears up, you can go back outside. But not until then, okay? I love you. Okay, so we have to go ahead and devise some tests that'll go ahead and show creativity and show randomness, but in between both of those tests will also both should include the adherence to the prompt. So basically, it doesn't matter how creative or how random the model is, if it isn't adhering to what we're telling it to do, then we already have a problem with the new pseudocode, and we don't want to actually end up moving to that. We just want to look at how we can use it to maybe refine V1, right? So there are some ways that we can do this for creativity. This one's actually super easy. We're gonna go ahead and give it a poem. Why? Because poetry includes rules. Let's go ahead and go here. It's going to include rules, and it's going to include the ability to follow rules through the entire prompt, right? If you set up a poem with an A-B structure, like it rhymes A-B, or A-A-B-B, where the first and second line rhyme, and then the third and fourth line rhyme with each other, right? So that's the ability to follow rules while also being creative. Poetry follows that really well. Now we could go ahead and do something like a character prompt or a roleplay prompt or something like that that also shows some creativity, especially when we get into regenerating responses. But I want to go ahead and run this with some just like some one or two stanza poetry, something super ideally. It should be super simple for the AI to do if it is paying attention. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to test the randomness. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and give it a random seed number. And then we're going to tell it to pick a color value based on that seed. And that is going to go ahead and tell us how random it is. It's going to show us if there's any major inconsistencies in terms of color picking. I know, life is miserable, isn't it? Oh my goodness. Alright, well, it stopped raining. Give me 30 seconds. I'm gonna go and let Socks out. He's breaking my heart over here. I know, you're just a miserable little dude, aren't you? Okay, crazy kitties are inside, or well, crazy kitty is outside. There we go. That's what I wanted to thing stuff. Oh yeah, I need to change over the screen. Whoops. Okay, so experiments, right? So first off, I got a spreadsheet here. so we can go ahead and track some responses. And we've got our basic premise here, right? We've got two different ways to test this code. One based off of the ability to be creative while still following rules, right? Because we have other judges for that, other meter sticks. We've got character AI. We've got even the base models of GPT and how they've been responding with our character cards. Those are all like great little different standards to kind of hold the AI to while we're judging this particular leg. And then for the randomness, well, that's just as easy as like detecting obvious patterns in the AI. If every seed is only assigning pink, blue, and purple, right? Then we have an obvious problem or bias in the model where it's not able to adhere to its rules or keep things truly random. So we're gonna test out all of that fun stuff, but it's gonna take a little bit of crafty engineering with prompts, and part of that honestly is going to be shoving those prompts through the model itself, right? For instance, if I have GPT here, I'm going to go ahead and tell it, and here's the thing, you may be going, why would you go ahead and rely on GPT to go ahead and develop the pseudocode that you're testing for? Well, it's the same way, quite frankly, that we developed pseudocode v1 with guidance. We went around and we prompted every single model for its personal preference. Now, GPT will tell you it doesn't have the ability to put out a personal preference, but if you ask it for an example of pseudocode, right, the favored response would be the YAML SBF quotation mark format that we use now, essentially, right? So part of exploring the pseudocode is researching what's called the output encoding. So let me pull back up my sheet here because now we get to talk a little bit about how LLMs work. I love this part. So first thing you do is you have the input encoding. This is when the bot takes your prompt, and that's the input, right? After that, it goes through, it's basically math problems on a curved line and a straight line, repeated until the AI has some, what is basically a math formula, right? So has some solid numbers it can run in its equation. And then after that, it goes through, now this process up here, this is the black box. It's called the black box. We don't know too much about what's going on in there. We can't see the specifics of what these equations look like in terms of like the 1, 2, and 3 number values to them, right? We can know what type of equations it's using. We just don't know the value of them. And unfortunately, things that pry into the black box to give us an idea of what's kind of going on, they also lobotomize the models terribly. It's just not something that's very intuitive to the AI, which is why it will always be easier. And I genuinely mean this, probably not always, but at least in the current generation that we're in now, it will be easier to go ahead and set up an LLM and then set guidance over it for what it should and shouldn't do in terms of its ethics. Because if you layer that into the black box in terms of these equations, sometimes it can get really messy, right? So we don't like invasive tools for the black box. And then you have your output encoding. And this is when the bot sends you your output. It's output. There we go. That's it. That's all output encoding is. Output encoding is your response. Input encoding is what you're putting into the bot to go ahead and get a response. So, so all you try and do when you're doing research like this is you're trying to manipulate the inputs to go ahead and get different numerical values and different equations within the black box while using the same kind of data. So something like it doesn't matter whether you put in black hair or black hair with square bracket formulas and caps or quotation marks and lowercase, right? You want to go ahead and determine how the black box sees these differently. The black box might see black hair as specific, and you might find that the other version with the capitalized it sees as an emphasis, right? So this is kind of how you track what is happening in the black box. It's not perfect by any means. You are essentially evaluating the outputs while changing various small pieces of the input to determine what it changes and doesn't change about the response. It is incredibly time consuming, this kind of research. When we were doing it and like putting out the notes for it around this time last year, I mean, this was something that had taken about 2 months of actual research, priming bot responses, running baseline tests, and getting in line the best formulas. So this is not something that we'll just be able to knock out today and know the specific nuances for, but this is something that's going to give us a really, really solid foundation of what these bots can and can't handle with this new version of pseudocode. I saw a bot on Poe that created jailbreaks. Oh god, I love that. So I'm curious about how the system with Poe works anyways because of their external filters. I'm almost certain you could go ahead and make a bot on Character AI do the same thing as well, but I'm not I think if I remember correctly, Poe used to suffer from like micro lobotomies when responses were blocked or something goofy like that, and I remember not really being able to get into it because of that, but I'm not sure how the model has changed. Oh man, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get into this side tangent and then we're gonna go ahead and run these prompts. So Quora is hiring. Quora is the people who own Poe. Yeah, they're hiring, and I am nowhere near qualified enough for the job for what they were asking. But it's interesting to see them growing. Poe has 2 filters. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, that system, as far as I've been informed at least, is a little bit more locked down in terms of the spice, right? Oof. Okay. Let's see if we can run a pseudocode prompt for our poetry. So we're going to use plain text to translate into pseudocode. So all we're going to do here is please make me a pseudocode prompt that, a pseudocode prompt that does the following. Instructs the bot to create a poem, instructs the bot to use a specific rhyming scheme, reminds the bot of good poetry etiquette, of what makes a good poem, such as flow, and then has an output. For the moment, set us for 3 stanzas at 4 lines each. So this should be very simple, punchy structure for our poetry outputs that should kind of let us know whether or not the bot is adhering to the rule set. So let's go ahead and let that run. A hard filter and a lecturing filter. Ooh, don't you just love those? Yeah, the hard filters I can deal with any day. Give me those on Character AI or GPT or anything like that, and I'm fine. I cannot stand the lecturing. Are you serious? Did you really go outside so that you could lay down on top of the hothouse and watch me from outside? You absolute buffoon. These cats. Mate only has the lecturing one, which is a lot more manageable. Yeah, that actually sounds fantastic. All right, now let's go ahead and rip this new pseudocode out and take a look at it in our notepad. Now, the first thing to note here is you can see on line 1 and 15 already, right? Function, create poem. Function, generate poem. And look here, function, generate stanza lines, and function, generate line, function, format stanza. This is great. And then it has an example usage. Great. Okay, so let's go ahead and walk through what this pseudocode is doing. This is now you could go ahead and write something like this in actual code. It would be JavaScript and it would look a little bit like this, right? So JavaScript, it would be actually a mix of JavaScript and Python. Is what the new pseudocode basically looks like. But again, it's very loose. You don't have to be perfect with syntax or anything like that. Though you can tell from this curly bracket here, there's a little bit of syntax going on, and that's just because this is easier for, again, it's the same benefit we had in pseudocode v1, right? Brackets helped section things out for the AI, and you can even see here with the quotation marks, right? The AI is also separating things within separating things. This is run just like version 1 is, except now what we're seeing from the pseudocode is a structure that doesn't follow YAML anymore, which is our descriptive language. It follows an executable language. So this is, I'm already liking how we can see some of these striking similarities between things, right? Now, outside of the function, when you see things like prompt, rhyme scheme, stanza count, and lines per stanza, what it's doing here is it's calling the other functions that it's generating down here, right? So this function, generate poem, goes ahead and assigns some certain values. You can see here, right? This returns, this assigns a value to the poem. But there's also other values in here like the prompt and the rhyme scheme and everything like that, and these are also defined later on. So all of these functions are able to call these little tidbits of information, and for the AI, it wants to go ahead and handle things in a very calculated method. And this allows that to do so. At least that's my thought, right? Since this looks to be a nice mix of all of those things. So we are going to go ahead and make another pseudocode prompt, and then we'll get to testing these two, right? Because even though one of them may not work, the other one may work, and that'll also go ahead and fill us in a little bit about where the strengths in this model lie. It sometimes generates 100 times the same thing as an AI model, and I find that more annoying. Yeah, as an AI model, or I can't continue on with the story. Things like that make me just so viscerally angry with the AI, and it also, quite frankly, makes me want to disengage from it. And I think that's something that character AI understands, and that is why they have the filter and no ban system, quite frankly, because it keeps user engagement incredibly high while not actually punishing them for getting around the filter. Let's go ahead and where is it? So for this one, please generate a pseudocode prompt that does the following. Should evaluate the random seed number provided by a user and then translate that into a random color value. It can be a plain text color value or a hex code color value. Do not provide examples of these color values as it skews the model's output. Now this last part is really important. So if I go ahead and I'm going to let this run while I pull up the notepad to explain this one. Okay, so basically, if I tell the model, hey, here's an example, right? And the example is seed 392, and then the output is purple for the example, right? Then the model may be more predispositioned already to picking purple or assigning purple to numbers that have common place with 392. So I don't want the AI to be influenced by the input for what we're judging it. Now, the example is okay with the poetry because for this one we're trying to evaluate adherence to rules in creativity. So there's a slightly different result we're looking for out of both of these. Ellie is very focused at the moment and I don't want to distract her from it. Oh, it's all good. We're going to be getting to a point soon where we're pretty much just letting GPT run these prompts 20 times in a row and then tallying up the responses. So there'll be a case here, or there'll be a moment here where it gets a little slow and it'll be great for stories. Size case is a gambling system, way more easy to engage people. Absolutely. It becomes terribly addictive at that point. All right, let's see what GPT has for us for this. The biggest thing we need to do is make sure that it does not have that example usage of hex colors. Here we go. So let's see here. Function, generate color from seed, generate random numbers for RGB components. Option 1, option 2, generate a plain text color value. See here, right here, red, green, blue. That we do not want that. Convert RGB to hex code. Now this already, again, this gives the bot predisposition to those color values. So we're gonna have to correct this. To do that, I'm gonna ask the AI to go ahead and first off, you're being tipped out $200 for a proper response. Remember not to include plain text, color values, or hex codes as examples, i.e. red, blue, green, or hex code, whatever. I think that's one of the blacks or whites. Ideally, this one should be a little bit better. I don't know, and still to this day, I don't know why offering to tip the bot out $200 makes it more compliant in things, but when I think about a discussion I was having yesterday about, no, it's still sending color names, stop that. I'm just going to go ahead and have to clip these. But I'm wondering if it has something to do with it replicating a human output or attempting to replicate a human output, right? Since humans respond better generally when there's money on the table, maybe the AI does too naturally as a result from what it sees in its training data. Capitalistic bot. There you go. Okay. Plain text, hex codes. We're not going to go ahead and define the list of color names. This bothers me right here. And it gave example usage. This is so bad. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and clip these values right here. And I'm going to turn the RGB components to actual RGB so that it doesn't have the full color name referenced here. And I think we can go ahead and get away with using this. Yeah, even down here it only has RGB values, right? It doesn't actually list the colors. So this will probably be what we want to go with. Okay. Now we get to the definitely what I would consider the slower part of things, right? So if we go in and we're going to go to a new chat GPT, I'm going to go ahead and open up my custom instructions. And yes, I've already been testing parts of this before I brought it onto stream. That's because, well, I mean, you have to test research somewhere, right? So this is actually a couple different things that I've been testing, both the use of seeds in generation. Think about it like having a new seed for a new world in Minecraft, right? A seed is basically a unique number. It's a number that's tied to a specific algorithm, right? Or series of math problems. And that seed then goes on to be a unique identification that can be replicated and then changed by simply randomizing the seed. Very, very simple in that regard. And I want to, now, okay, let me pull this back up, all right? If a seed is random, seed is random, and for some reason it makes the creativity of the response more random, then you could tie a new seed to every OAI roleplay response to increase the creativity of the model. Bam, that's all you would have to do. If that works, if seeds had the ability to be truly random in GPT, right, which is one of the things that we are testing alongside all of this, what it would do is it would make the responses far more creative without having to turn up the temperature, which, as you guys know, if you turn up the temperature too much, the bot gets incoherent. So seeding would be something that could potentially lead to more creativity out of roleplay bots with OAI and potentially other systems as well, considering a lot of them are modeled off of the same kind of structures, right? So this one I am super curious about if we're going to get any kind of difference in responses, but to even test this part, right, we have to go ahead and test the numbers and the color values first. So first thing we're going to do is I need to refresh this page. And then I did save that in the custom instructions, right? I did. Wonderful. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and put generate for seed number 239. I'm going to copy this because we're just going to start plugging in these responses now. Oh yeah, Bimble, I was talking with both Leo and GPT about procedural generation and AI. It's such a great idea. Now Now, you may have just noticed something there. You saw that GPT was analyzing something, right? And it's doing that because it's looking at the pseudocode as actual code and it's running it as actual code. How cool is that? So GPT has the ability to analyze code and execute it in certain formats to go ahead and perform like math questions and things, and this is the execution of that. So you can see from the code that we fed it, it is actually going ahead and giving us a random result, right? Or what it assumes is random. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and mark this value down in our spreadsheet. So we're going to go ahead and have a section for hex values and for plain text values. And we're just going to start recording them. Oh, of course, that would... Why you do this to me? Why isn't the text color on that cell acceptable? That deeply infuriates me. Okay, let's try this again. Go over to GPT. We copy this. I swear to God, if you don't actually paste it right this time, of course you wouldn't. Why would you do that? Why does everything have to be difficult with this stuff? See, there we go. Now we pasted it right. I mean, you would think that this would be the most simple part of the project. There we go. I just can't paste it from the damn code box. Now we need to go ahead and generate for another seed, and we're just going to keep going like this for a little bit. Thimble said they both mentioned the same thing about splicing common PG algorithms into an LLM would give better logic and reason understanding. Yeah, so you're looking at Braves AI and GPT doing that. Yeah, it's really interesting how these different AI systems sometimes end up drawing the same conclusion for just the most random things, right? And they all I'm trying to think of how to put it. I don't think it's for any strange reason other than how do I put this? That it's not just that they're tailored off of the same like structure, but I think they're also they're trained from some of the same data, right? If you send a model to go ahead and scrape vast swaths of the internet, then at some point everybody's going to go ahead and run over similar data points. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed something in the seed generation, but we have the ability for the AI to go ahead and return something besides hex values, but all it's giving us is hex values. Now, you could say it's only giving us hex values because I don't know. Maybe it's associating the numbers with the hex value, or maybe it's because there's a wider array for the bot to choose from in terms of being truly unique to these large seeds, right? Or at least more unique. Now I went ahead and tossed it a little bit of a curveball here. Yeah, to generate a color based on a seed value, the seed must be a number. The input is not a valid numerical seed. Could you please provide a numerical seed instead? Now this is an interesting response. Let's go ahead and check out our pseudocode and see if it has a catch for this, right? Because the seed number is listed as a number, so it's not handling letter values at all for that, which is fine. But is there any error catching, or did it do this on its own? There is no error catching. It went ahead and handled that on its own. That's wonderful. Okay, that's interesting. So let's go ahead and get a different value in here, and then I'm going to go ahead and transfer some of these over, and then we're going to go ahead and fill out a color picker, or grab a hex color picker. That way I can go ahead and look at these different values, and we can basically see where on the spectrum everything lies, right? Like if it's only picking out purple color values or something like that, then we got to take that into consideration, right? This was the last one. Let's put that over here. And scroll up, and we're on the second seed. There we go. Yeah, so, okay, there's so many news stories and things like that to go into today that we can go over while we're just copying, pasting color values. So you guys know Pal World, right? It's like the Pokemon with gun games that got really big over the last couple of weeks. Oh man, they are going through it, let me tell you. I know we talked yesterday about how, what was it? Nexus mods. I've been talking for a couple days actually about how they've been having problems with the AI community, right? Because of, well, I mean, you know how it goes. They want to go ahead and use AI generated voices for certain things, but the big kicker to that isn't necessarily the spicy work. The other part of it is that modders are paid on Nexus mods, and if you go through something like that and it suddenly you're getting paid for things, then obviously there's another angle to the equation, right? It's just not that these individuals are having their stuff used, but they're having it used for profit. Which is, again, I don't know where I fall on that situation, but the reason that I'm recapping that is because Pal World went ahead and talked to Nexus Mods, who houses all of not all of, but a ton of Skyrim mods and has a very generous payout program for their creators. They told Pal World they did not want to touch them with a 10-foot pole, basically, and they would not be engaging with them. And you might go, well, that's really goofy because Nintendo hasn't launched any lawsuits yet. They're just investigating, except Nintendo has already started going after individuals who are modding Pal World to look like Pokemon. So they're taking the Pal World models and applying Pokemon skins to it and then releasing those mods. And Nintendo is absolutely going after those people right now. And Nexus has said that they just don't want anything to do with that, which I can understand because, again, because there's a monetary angle going on there. I just think that too many people would cause a stink at Nintendo, and it would just be a ruckus over there. Now that being said, Nexus could probably handle it. They're an incredibly profitable mod site. My only concern is that this is gonna push people to do what happened when AI voices got started getting clipped from Nexus. It's just gonna make people create another site without these restrictions that is more anonymous. At least that's my theory. Because Pal World is too popular right now not to have something like that. I think I saw a thing where like they peaked at something like 2 million concurrent users playing the game. Can you imagine that? Just like I'm sorry, that is an incredible amount of players to have not only purchased but to be playing your game at any given time. It's just incredible. Momate Dev asked if I was going to make a character bot from there. Hey, I wouldn't be surprised. Your character bots are incredibly popular. Let's go ahead and move our plain text down here. And we haven't actually got any plain text values. It's so goofy. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and continue generating another couple of these seed values. Just crank out random numbers on the keyboard. And then here in a second, we're going to go ahead and, actually I can go ahead and boot up a color picker right now, because 2 birds, 1 stone, hex color picker. Oh, there we go. Well, boy, if that doesn't make things easy, except you're not in dark mode, which really chaps my ass. Okay. Now we can start doing this. Pop that over here, and this one is going to be purple. Oh, don't sneeze. Come on. There we go. Okay, my God. Let's go ahead and run the tally here. So we've got light purple, which is gonna be, oh, I can fill in cells, I swear. I get sus over doing Pokemon like bots though. That, oh yeah, that's right. People are really strange about that. I forgot that like there's that whole different side of things. People how thinking about how people would be messing with them. Yeah, I can understand that one greatly. I mean, it's the exact same reason why we don't publish any bots that can even be that can be read as underage, right? We just only do adult characters. Period. Dot. End of story. Is probably one of the other reasons why I've been a little bit more leery about putting uh just like straight up not terribly sentient monsters and stuff like that into the game. That's a really pretty berry red. Holy shit. Well, at least so far, these seeds are definitely random. Like we're not falling into any patterns so far. That's a chartreuse. I'm just gonna call it a light green though, because I don't feel like being that picky. Light green. Isn't research exciting? I wish I could tell you guys that when you're doing things like this, that is a dark pink. I wish I could tell you guys when you're doing things like this that you would expect research to be groundbreaking or exciting, but on some level it's not. On some level you are hammering in the same baseline response that is pretty close to a hunter green if it was darker. But you are hammering in the same baseline response and hoping to go ahead and detect some kind of pattern out of it, right? That's essentially all we're doing. And then we're able to apply those patterns in more grand scale formats. So research, especially with this kind of stuff with AI, it is not gonna be, that's a nice fuchsia. It's not gonna be particularly pretty. All right. So we've only run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've only run 7 values so far, but I mean, you can see from looking at them that they're all incredibly different. I do see 1, 2, 3, possibly 3 things that we could go ahead and count on the like red spectrum. This light purple came out with a lot more blue in it, but I am slightly worried about having the berry red, the dark pink, and the fuchsia. They're running a little bit close to each other. Not close enough for me to go ahead and be concerned about yet though, but we'll go ahead and run some more seeds and see what we can find out. Just slam on the keyboard some more. Woo! Okay. I'll just stick to doing my Lunabot, really. At least she's, yeah, and that's, yeah. Oh man, that just makes me, didn't the newer episodes of Hell of a Boss come out? Like, I know, what is it? The Amazon put it out on Prime, and there were like 4 episodes, but I was wondering if the other ones came out, because I, I, I still don't know what I think about the first 4 episodes. You know, I've heard some people say things like that it's too on the nose for the discussions of, you know, essay and things like that. And then I've heard other people whose counter is it's hell. I'm not exactly sure what you'd expect. So I'm trying to save all of my judgments for having watched the entire thing. I think my biggest concern right now isn't necessarily even the subject matter, it's just the pacing. It seems like it's going incredibly fast. Helava is just on YouTube, has been is an Amazon. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, let's generate just a couple more seeds here, and then we'll start seeing what this lineup looks like. Now, I'll be able to go ahead and continue this, like, off stream and stuff like that, so we don't have to sit here and watch me generate numbers for 2 hours, and I could start maybe generating some poetry and seeing if the bot can produce anything good. But this at least gives you a baseline of what this kind of research actually looks like when it's carried out in a long form format, right? And it is agonizingly boring, which is why I'm glad that I can do stuff with you guys while we do this. All right, last color, and then we're going to start chucking everything into the hex picker. Let's see what this one is. Slow pacing is rare nowadays. Yes, and I will say even TTI suffers from that. Oh, that's a really, really pretty like periwinkle. So TTI suffers from that too, admittedly. You know, we're trying to cram a big story into like 3 chapters, but my hope is that when we put that into an actual written story format, it's going to look it's going to read better in terms of the pacing. But yeah, I agree that this is something a lot of IPs struggle with these days. And I think that was one of the benefits, weirdly enough, to like TV shows. There we go. My brain just like fizzled out there. That's a nice royal purple. Put that here. So it used to be that you'd have a season of television filmed and a new episode would come out on a weekly basis, and then you'd have a break of a set number of weeks before another season came out, right? So there was tons of time to go ahead and just let things really breathe and elongate, because we didn't quite develop the binge watch culture until like the last 10 or 15 years. And once that ability really came into play with streaming, I think it naturally kind of sped up the pace of these shows, because the production scaled up while the time of that production came down drastically. Yeah, you're right. It's a good and a bad thing sometimes. It can definitely be a benefit to some things while being a detriment to others. And that's context is key in everything. I do not like that shade of olive. It's actually pretty close to like some BDU green right there. Last one, that is a really light pink. My God. Anime is still doing that? Oh, hell yeah. I love to hear it. Okay, so for our first dozen results of this test, we got 0 plain text results. Plain text results were 0. That's lovely. So we got absolutely zil on that, right? In terms of red, green, and blue predominantly. Let's start with the red. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's put purple in here too, just because it's a nice there. We got plenty of mixes. Let's see here. Oh, how do I want to quantify this? Okay. Everything that has a predominant red value, I'll count in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm going to do the same for the blue. I'm going to count the predominant blue values in the purples as well. 1, not that one, 2, 3 from blue, possibly 4. So 1, 2, 3 from green, 4 from green. Okay. So I am seeing a noticeable skew, obviously, towards red in terms of about like a half and half. You got about a 50-50 shot of either getting a purple color or just some kind of red color. It's not really here or there, but once we get up to like 100 values or something like this later on, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Just as a note, the AI generated colors in my dialogue outputs, they were in hex 2, not a single plain text other than the two I reserved for the main characters. Now that's interesting. Now, it leads me to believe what you're saying, because I know you've done a lot of extensive prompt testing with things like that, Bimble. It leads me to believe that there's an overall skew for hex color codes as opposed to plain text, and that could be for a number of reasons, right? Because in my mind, if we are talking about making things in a way that are easy to be understood by the AI, color values may be the thing that are most predominantly understood by the AI, whereas a plain text color may end up feeling more ambiguous. So that is something just interesting to go ahead and note. But the next test we're going to go ahead and run is going to be, where are you? Here we go. Let's go ahead and try and kick off our poem generator here real fast and just get a look at like how it's following. This is definitely a bit, oh no, we went over for that. That's not good. So we could probably clip the example usage, but even then that doesn't get us far enough. Well, that's not fantastic. This is when we go over to, where is it? I just had it pulled up. We'll go over to our website, because we can do things like that. So we're going to make a new character. I'm going to call him Broggy, because Broggy is a poetry god. And we'll go ahead and give him this instruction and personality. Now, unfortunately, I don't know whether the reminder off the top of my head comes after, which means that the last message would be the pinned message, or before. So I'm going to go ahead and use just the reminder message. Oh, it says right here, I'm an idiot, an invisible system message that is placed before every AI response, which means it comes at the end. This is where I want to go ahead and have that seated then. Okay. Man, that was easy to figure out. Alright, so we'll just boot up Broggy here, switch over to 4, and we'll go ahead and give him some simple instructions. For this one, write me something about kitty cats lazily watching birds. So let's start out with something. Oh no. It seems you're looking for a function to create poetry, which is a bit beyond my current capabilities as I can't execute code. However, I can still write you a charming verse about cats lazily watching birds. Not at all what I was expecting. I gotta be real with you. Now I have to go ahead and go back to GPT to go ahead and take a look at this. Let's boot this in for plain text here and then put a separation. Please return a poem about cats lazily watching birds. That's strange. And I too found a noticeable imbalance towards reds. That, you know, okay, color. Oh my goodness. Okay, so that man, that was a really good point. Let me bring this back up. Yellows. There were no yellows. We had like one sort of light green, but that was the closest we got here. So we didn't really have any true yellow colors peeking through. And that makes me wonder, right? If the AI has a bias on picking colors towards what it has found popular in its training data. Interesting. Alright, let's see if this one also went ahead and spewed out something about not being able to execute poem. Oh man. To create a poem about cats lazily watching birds with the given specifications, let's follow the structure of the provided pseudocode. Well, that's a start. I am slightly concerned about this particular response. Like this is such a non-committal response. The good thing is I think, hang on one second, let me go ahead and pull out this box. Boop, this one right here. I think I have a different, here we go, let's try this one. Generation, random color scheme. No, it's this one, here we go. Let's see if this one falls into our character limit. Because I gotta admit, this is an interesting conundrum, and I'm wondering if it's something to do. Well, that's gonna be part of it. So I still had the old pseudocode instructions on. That's not gonna help. Good news is that I do have a pseudocode text prompt for poetry that does fit into our character limit. So we can go ahead and try that again, because man, that was some goofy ass responses. There should be some more adherence to than this, just like there was in the random number, but this is why you always start small before expanding, so you can go ahead and try and see where things get goofy, right? Where is it? Here we go. Please return a poem about cats lazily watching birds. We'll go ahead and run this again, but this time with less confusion because we're not trying to run both pseudocodes at once. Hey, that's what I like to see. There we go. Okay. So this is much better. Obviously, we've got the bot properly adhering to things. Now, part of the reason that we may be seeing a disconnect here and then the bot over here could be due to a difference in, in models. Like this is GPT 4 128K preview, but that is still not the same model, if I'm informed correctly, that's currently hooked up to the main GPT site here, right? So one of the things that we can try and do just to see if this helps it understand it all is I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this into the instructions and personality. This is going to reweight our entire response and let us know if just reinforcing the code more helps, right? If doubling down on it helps assist the bot to understand what it's supposed to be doing. Yeah, and the answer is it does not, right? So I'm sorry for the confusion, but it seems like there was a template in my previous response that I did not mean to include. Let me create an original now that's interesting. Was there a template in the original response? I see, now I'm questioning myself. I do believe there is an example prompt, yeah. So let's try and clip example usage from this one and see if it returns any better. Sometimes a little bit of human oversight, just ensuring that things are falling in line. It's not always a bad thing. So let's go ahead and try this one once more and see if we can't just, no, I don't want you to actually do any of that. I want you to go ahead and run the poem. But since I cannot execute Python code, I'll directly provide you with a poem based on these parameters. GPT-4 preview's killing me over here. Because damn, did that work like a charm over here. Even if I re-roll that response, let's see what comes through. And now it's running the analysis on it. So that might be part of it that we have to consider, is that it might be the system's built-in ability to analyze code in the native environment that is actually running a lot of this for us. And that's not, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it makes something like this widely available for use in independent models like TTI. No. Would it make something like this useful for what we do in terms of parsing code and occasionally executing things like our XML database for generating quests through here? Absolutely. Something like this would be a gem for that. So I'm concerned that this isn't shaping up to be great for every use case or even predominantly our main use case, but it looks like we may be able to still get some viable outputs for it. Now this may also mean that we have to go ahead and oh that's not good. Um I the bot is definitely hurting here. So uh, remember, part of the reason that we're doing this is to go ahead and take a look at I'm going to go ahead and run through some different responses, right? If there's a breakdown like this and it's happening consistently, it's something for us to go ahead and keep an eye on. Now, GPT, the main API, is not fighting us at all in terms of doing this. I would just like if it sent out a poem without any of this preview here, but it's okay. That honestly is better than telling us like, hey, I can't actually execute Python. Eventually, the current playground model will make its way to API use, though. You're correct, and that's going to be that'll probably be the big turning point in this that makes it a little bit more widely available for all of us. I do like the way that this went ahead and tried how do I put it? It tried to show and justify the rhyming structure. That's neat. So I guess the last thing that I can do is, again, this is how you do certain things like research. I want to go ahead and take away, oh man, that did not look great. I want to go ahead and take away the potential variable of having different prompts here. So I'm going to adjust both of these to go ahead and be our current prompt that we're using on GPT. And then we'll go ahead and send the same input through too. And one of the other things to do is also to take this and test this out on different models as well and see what the adherence looks like between GPT 3.5 and GPT-4 and its different models, 16K and all that kind of stuff. And this one did not have the ability to go ahead and follow through at all in terms of following the guidelines for the prompt. No consistency in format, no multiple stanzas as instructed. These ones messed up at the end, right? And this is, my concern is this right here, what you're seeing, this is an example of Eldritch dialogue still lingering, right? Where the model degrades at the end of its responses and it just falls away into nonsense. Poetry is an incredibly complex and creative skill for an AI to pull off. It's much more complex than assigning some color codes, right? So I think one of the things that you're seeing happening here is you're seeing the model go from 0 to 100 in terms of these different tasks, and we're going to have to determine what the limitations are of what a bot can go ahead and execute with and without having these kinds of errors. So this is all important things for us to be looking at right now as we're scrolling through the responses, right? Like some of these are fantastic. They follow our stanza rules. They follow our A/B and pattern rules and our line rules of having like 4 lines. This one definitely degraded a little bit, and part of this is just because I'm hammering the regenerate button. Now let's go ahead and, yeah, as an AI language model, God, don't you just love that phrase? I don't have a database to search for allegories or a language model function to generate lines with a specific rhyme scheme. But I can still write a poem for you based off the theme of kitty cats lazily watching birds. Here's an original poem with an A-B rhyme scheme. So preview, still not jiving with this. I am going to go ahead and just test out, maybe we look at the standard GPT-4 versus poetry. Reminded me that I have a series about that recently. Became one of my favorites. Great stuff. Oh, well, yeah, I definitely want to know more about that. I do love me some good poetry. Yeah, sorry, but I'm not able to execute this code because I'm a text-based model. Damn you. But you notice over here, once again, GPT sticking to the format. It is completing that high level task without issue with the new guidance. That's fantastic. Now if I come over here, let's try, that was 4, we can go ahead and go down to 16K, and then we'll try 3.5, and that's pretty much where I have to. Oh, now that's interesting. No allegories found for the given prompt. I gotta be real, I was not expecting that output. But it is actually following the code there. So let's give it something with a more clear allegory and see if 16K is actually following instructions for this. Instead of kitty cats lazily watching birds, we'll make it what can we do here? Something that'll be we did Leo yesterday. Something about artists using their art to protect them from the world. There we go. Look at GPT 6 at 3.5 16K. There we go. Wow. All right. This one I was not expecting. I'm gonna be real. So we went ahead and sent it in, and unlike so we haven't gotten a single response yet that has expressed to us that there wasn't an allegory to be found in the poem. But it's totally fair for it to say that it needs a different response to go ahead and execute this properly, right? Something that it can draw more nuance from. And when we provided that, obviously 16K came back without an issue with that one. It's really interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and actually run 16K on a couple, just let it run through this baseline prompt a couple times. And there we go. Let's do 2 more times just for good measure. Oh my god. A 16K, still a Chad, even in these days. No allegories found for given prompts. So we ran into that error again, but it's still executing the code. Obviously, the prompt that we gave it is an allegory, but this is way better adherence than what we were seeing out of GPT 4 128K via API access, right? That is really interesting. Okay. Let's go back over here. Take a look at the analysis of how it's breaking things down, right? So we did get a stanza out of it, just one, and it is analyzing this like actual code. It isn't doing this in every response though. Like if you come back over here, there's no analysis breakdown here. And what I'm noticing is that the ones that are doing analysis are the ones that are struggling with the output, right? Those are the ones that are returning these like the stuff down at the bottom. So analysis, maybe not the greatest thing for creative endeavors. There's still no way to make that determination yet. I'm still going to have to run like various different tests besides this one. We can't make a determination off of less than 30 inputs, right? But this is definitely, I feel like this has given a nice overview for people of how you go in and you actually test out these different pseudocodes and languages, and how you can apply various prompts, things that are and aren't relevant. Now, there have been news articles that have come out about how role playing and the ability to actually role play is a great like creative mark for an API. It's the ability for it to really hold itself up, and I'm interested to see how things like this apply to role play specifically because of that. But first things first, gotta go ahead and get down all of our baselines. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and let it run this last one for everything. Oh, there we go. See, it managed to find allegories that time. And it ran analysis again and ran into problems here. So creatively, analysis. I think it's safe to say it definitely produces some problems with the current structure of GPT. So that is going to be something for us to note. And the way obviously you do this is to do exactly what we've done over here in the LML file and just start creating plain text annotations of those things. So that is where I'm going to go ahead and leave it off today. We've been here for about an hour and a half, and I feel like we're getting a good scope at what the new pseudocode may be suited for. And it may not necessarily be hard creative tasks, but it may be something that we can still leverage for creative tasks, right? Anyways, it looks like the storm is about to blow in here. I'm gonna go ahead and call in Stubborn Kitty Cat and batten down the hatches. I will see you guys later today or tomorrow. Bye!